They didn't even show up to my college graduation. Not because they couldn't, but because my brother had a softball game. That's the moment it all clicked. I wasn't the daughter. I was the backup. My name's Celeste. I'm 29 now, but the first time I realized I didn't matter in my own family, I was 6. We lived in a modest 2-story home in a quiet suburb of Texas. My dad owned a local construction business, and my mom stayed home full-time. I have 2 older brothers, Caleb and Brian, who were everything to my parents. Our boys, my mom used to say, with a smile so big you'd think they hung the stars. But me? I was the afterthought. The tag-along. The, don't make too much noise, your brothers are studying, kid. At first, I didn't notice. I just wanted to be included. I used to bring my drawings to dinner, hoping Dad would put them up on the fridge like he did for Caleb's trophies or Brian's science fair ribbons. But all I got was a glance and a distracted, "That's nice, honey." Then back to discussing what kind of batting gloves Caleb needed or which college Brian should apply to. Still, I tried harder. I got straight A's. I learned how to cook dinner when Mom was sick. I took care of myself when no one else remembered. I never asked for anything. And when I won first place in the regional art contest in 9th grade, I ran home so excited I could barely breathe. I handed the ribbon to my mom. She blinked. "That's cute, Celeste. Hey, Caleb just got picked for varsity." That night, I cried myself to sleep, biting the pillow to muffle the sound. By the time I got into college, with a full scholarship, I had stopped telling them things. I didn't even expect a celebration. But it still hurt when my acceptance letter to NYU came, and the only response I got was, "That's pretty far. You sure you don't want to stay close? Maybe do community college like Brian did?" They never asked how I'd pay, never offered help. Meanwhile, they co-signed car loans, covered tuition, and even paid rent when Brian found himself for 2 years after dropping out. I worked 3 jobs: morning coffee shop, tutoring in the afternoon, campus library at night. I ate noodles. I fixed my own laptop with YouTube tutorials. I studied so hard, I developed eye strain and tension migraines. And when graduation came, the one day I let myself hope, they didn't come. I called 2 weeks before, reminded them, begged a little. Mom said, "Oh no, honey, Brian's softball team made it to state. It's kind of a big deal." They didn't even ask what day my ceremony was. So I walked across that stage alone. But I didn't cry. Not then. I smiled for the photo. I shook the dean's hand. And I made a silent vow. They won't get to ignore me forever. After college, I moved to California, worked in marketing, lived cheap, saved every penny. While Caleb and Brian failed startup after startup and came home to reset, again, I built something in silence. A brand agency. Small at first. Just me and a Craigslist desk in a shared co-working space. No one in my family even knew, until I sent $5,000 to help cover Dad's surgery after Caleb's business tanked, and Mom called crying. Not to thank me, but to say, "We're lucky to have such dependable sons." Sons. She thought it was Caleb who sent the money. I didn't correct her, I never do, because the truth, I was waiting, quietly, for the day they'd finally see me. That day came, but not how I expected. It started with an invitation, a family party to celebrate Caleb finally launching his business, the one I had funded without taking credit. I wasn't planning to go until I saw my name on the RSVP list. Celeste, catering and setup. Wait, what? I was invited to serve, not as a guest, not as the daughter who paid for the whole thing, as the help. And that's when everything changed. When I saw the words Celeste, catering and setup printed next to my name on the family group message, I actually laughed. Not the ha-ha kind, the broken kind, the kind of laugh that sounds like it's trying to keep a scream from escaping. I reread it 4 times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. I had wired $15,000 2 weeks earlier to Caleb's launch fund, under the impression that this party was part of a real business milestone. He said he needed it to secure the venue, hire a designer, and print product prototypes. I believed him. But here I was, slotted to help with catering and setup at my own brother's celebration. The same brother who used to call me the placeholder kid as a joke. No one asked if I was available. No one said thank you. They just assigned me like staff. And the worst part? I went. I know. Why would I do that? But I wasn't ready yet. Not to confront them. Not to walk away. Not until I was sure they couldn't deny what they were doing to me. So I showed up. Black dress. Hair tied back. A polite smile plastered on my face like I wasn't suffocating inside. The venue was beautiful. String lights, live music, catered hors d'oeuvres. Mom wore a pearl necklace I didn't recognize. Dad was holding court near the open bar. Caleb stood in the center like a golden boy fresh from a tech magazine cover. Smiling, shaking hands, telling everyone about how hard he'd worked. And me? I was in the back, arranging napkins and lighting candles. I overheard one of Caleb's friends ask, "Who's the girl fixing the dessert table?" "Oh, that's just his little sister," someone replied. "She helps out sometimes." Just his little sister, not the person who built a 6-figure brand consultancy from scratch, not the person who bailed them out when they couldn't afford rent, not the person who sent money for Dad's medical bills while eating canned soup herself. Just his little sister. I told myself I'd stay until speeches. Just until then. Then I'd leave and never look back. But I didn't make it that far. Because when the lights dimmed and the projector started playing Caleb's journey video, I felt my stomach twist. Slide after slide of his hard work played across the screen. Mock-ups, photos of meetings, even screenshots of client presentations. Except, they weren't his clients. They were mine. My branding decks, my concept visuals, my copywriting. I recognized every font, every phrase, every layout. I stood frozen, one hand still gripping a glass tray. My throat burned. My ears rang. I looked around the room, Mom clapping, Dad smiling proudly, people nodding like they'd just watched a genius at work. Caleb had stolen my work. Not just my money. Not just my time. My intellectual property. He'd taken my blood, sweat, and brilliance, and put his name on it. And no one, not a single person in that room, questioned it. After the video ended, Mom took the mic. She cleared her throat, smiling through tears. "I just want to say how proud we are of Caleb. We always knew he had that spark. He's always been the entrepreneur of the family, always had the vision, and tonight, he proved it." The room erupted in applause. I didn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then someone clinked a glass behind me. Brian, my other brother. He leaned in close and whispered, "You're good at this, you know? Maybe you should do it professionally, event planning." That's when I broke. But not in the way they expected. I set the tray down, smoothed my dress, and walked right up to the microphone. "Hi," I said, voice steady despite the storm inside me. "I'm Celeste, Caleb's little sister." The room quieted. "And I just want to say, congratulations. It's not easy to build something from scratch, especially when you didn't build it at all." Murmurs started. Caleb's face went pale. "That pitch deck? I made it. Those product concepts? I designed them. The client strategy? I wrote every word. And the money that funded this party? I looked right at my parents. That came from me too. Silence. Dead. Aching silence. Then I dropped the final blow. I hope everyone enjoyed the party, because it's the last thing this family will ever get from me." And I walked out the front door, leaving a room full of people choking on the truth they never expected me to say out loud. I thought walking out would feel like revenge, but it didn't. Not at first. It felt like grief. I spent the next 2 weeks avoiding every call, every message. I muted the family group chat. I deleted Caleb's number. I didn't even cry. I just went numb, like my body had finally accepted what my heart had known for years. I was never going to be enough for them unless I was carrying their weight. But what I didn't expect was how quickly they'd come crawling back. It started small. A text from Mom. Sweetheart, can we talk? You embarrassed your brother, but we're still family. Then came the guilt-laced voicemails from Dad. We raised you better than that. Public outbursts don't fix private issues. And finally, Brian, the one who used to ignore me unless he needed something. He texted, Look, we all get it. You've got a chip on your shoulder. But what's done is done. Let's move on. Move on? As if I hadn't spent years being their emotional trash can, their silent ATM, their invisible daughter. And that's when I knew they didn't regret what they did. They regretted that I said it out loud. They regretted losing control. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't even going to explain. I was going to disappear from their version of me. Behind the scenes, I changed everything. I closed the business accounts Caleb had access to, revoked his login credentials to the client portal. Yes, he still had them. I emailed every client personally, letting them know that any representation of our agency by Caleb was unauthorized and legally actionable. Then I met with a lawyer. A good one. Marcus, a sharp, quiet man with tired eyes and no patience for drama. He'd handled intellectual property theft cases before. He nodded while I laid out my story. At the end, he said, You've got receipts. You've got damage. You've got leverage. I asked him to file a cease and desist, not just against Caleb, but against my parents, too, for continuing to misrepresent me in conversations with donors and investors in his name. Because, yeah, turns out they'd used my name to secure a private donor for Caleb's business, a local investor I'd met at a networking brunch the year before. The man had been told that Caleb was co-founder of my agency. My parents were the ones who set up the meeting. I only found out when the investor emailed me, confused about why Caleb had no access to his own business documents. I nearly threw my laptop across the room. They hadn't just stolen my work. They'd tried to steal my identity. And that's when I snapped. I filed the paperwork to restructure my agency under a new name, one that didn't include any traces of my family. I hired a new accountant, transferred my company headquarters to a secure private location, shut down all non-essential communication channels, and I made one last move, a public one. I posted a short professional statement on LinkedIn. As of today, I am no longer affiliated, personally or professionally, with anyone previously claiming partnership in my agency. All future inquiries should be directed to my office directly. Please verify all credentials before engaging. Misrepresentation is subject to legal action. I didn't name names. I didn't need to, but I knew they'd see it. The message spread fast. A few former clients reached out to say they admired the clarity. One even added, Honestly, I always wondered why someone like him was associated with someone as sharp as you. But the twist? It came a few days later. I was at the office, reviewing a high-profile branding proposal, when my assistant walked in holding a letter. Handwritten, no return address. Inside was a folded check, made out to me, for $40,000. And the note attached? We were wrong, but Caleb can't afford to lose this deal. Please, just sign over the IP rights. You don't even need to come to the meetings. No apology. No acknowledgement of the years I gave them. Just money. Like I could be bought back into silence. That's when the anger finally settled in. They never wanted me to succeed. They just wanted to own whatever I became. And that's when I knew what I had to do next. When I saw the check, I didn't tear it up. I framed it. Not out of pride, but as a reminder. This is what they think I'm worth. A price tag on silence. A bribe for my obedience. But they had no idea who they were dealing with anymore. The girl they used to talk over at dinner, the one they forgot at school events, the one who once begged for acknowledgement, she was gone. What they had now was someone they helped shape with their neglect and underestimated to their own detriment. The next morning, I called Marcus. I want full legal separation, I said, voice calm. Personal, financial, reputational, draft everything, and I want it airtight. He didn't even hesitate. It's time. The first move was quiet but sharp. We filed a formal statement disassociating my name from any business ventures linked to my family. Then we launched a new website, a new agency brand, new entity registration, everything scrubbed of the past. The second move, more surgical. I contacted every vendor, client, and investor my parents or brothers had approached using my name, offering clarity, receipts, and legal proof of their misrepresentation. I didn't badmouth anyone. I didn't have to. The truth was enough. One of the investors, a well-known branding consultant in Austin, sent me this exact email. Celeste, I had no idea. The work I saw in those pitch decks was miles beyond what your brother could produce. It all makes sense now. That day, Caleb lost his biggest funding source. And it was only the beginning. Because I knew the real cracks weren't in the business. They were in the image. See, my family thrives on appearances. My mother is the queen of Facebook gratitude posts, always talking about her amazing boys and their entrepreneurial spirit. She even used one of my client project photos once, cropped out my watermark, and captioned it. Proud mom moment. Caleb's team just launched this campaign. I never said anything. But now, I decided it was time to return the favor. I started with a video. Not public, not scandalous, just truthful. I sat down in my office, clean background, simple lighting, and told my story like it was a client case study. Calm, factual, undeniable. I spoke about misattributed work, silent contributions, and what it looks like when someone gets erased by their own family. I sent that video to every professional contact I'd ever made, the ones who were always a bit confused about my brother's involvement. I even included a short PDF timeline and linked to public filings showing my sole ownership of all IP. The fallout was instant. By the end of that week, Caleb had 3 contracts canceled. My parents stopped posting entirely. Brian texted me just a question mark, but none of that compared to what happened next. It was a Thursday. I had just finished a meeting when Marcus called. Check your inbox, he said. I opened it and froze. Attached was a copy of a loan agreement, taken out 6 months ago, using my name, forged signature, co-signed by my parents. It wasn't a family business expense. It was a personal loan used to finance a luxury car and a vacation property, both under Caleb's name. They didn't just exploit me, they committed fraud. Marcus's voice cut through the silence. We need to report this. You're not just being used anymore, Celeste. You're being stolen from. I couldn't even breathe. The betrayal hit harder than anything before. Because this wasn't about being overlooked. This was calculated, intentional, criminal, and it meant only one thing. They never loved me for me. They only valued what they could take from me. So I stood up, walked to the framed check on my wall, and replaced it with the forged loan document. Then I called Marcus again. I want to press charges. They thought I'd never fight back. But they forgot. Silence was never consent. It was strategy, and it's over. Filing charges against your own family feels like tearing your own skin. But what they did wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was fraud. Plain and simple. Marcus handled everything with terrifying precision. We submitted the forged loan document to the bank and authorities, along with handwriting analysis, emails showing coordination between Caleb and my parents, and call logs that lined up with key dates. The detective assigned to the case didn't even flinch. This is textbook. We see this more than you'd think. Successful family member becomes the piggy bank. Only difference was, I wasn't going to let them keep playing me. The investigation moved quickly. Caleb was called in for questioning first. He spun lies about me, offering to help, and handling paperwork for him, until the officer pulled out the signed affidavit where I stated, under oath, I'd never even seen that loan. Then came the texts, screenshots I'd saved, messages from my mother asking me to be understanding if Caleb ever needed financial help, and one from my dad with a bank account number attached, and the phrase, just do this one last thing for the family. The charges, forgery, fraud, identity theft, and suddenly, the family that had spent a lifetime telling me to keep the peace was falling apart in the public eye. I didn't celebrate. Not really. But I did feel lighter. The day Caleb was formally charged, I sat in my office and finally deleted the old family group chat. I didn't read the messages. I didn't need to. Whatever they had to say came far too late. But it didn't end there, because the ripple effect hit harder than I imagined. The investor I had originally connected with, remember him? The one they tried to use my name to impress? He went public with a statement distancing himself from Caleb's company. He didn't mention the details, but he didn't have to. Word got around fast in our industry. Caleb's brand collapsed overnight. 3 vendors pulled out. His lease was terminated. His social media presence disappeared. My parents tried to play the victim, of course. They went to relatives, neighbors, church friends, told everyone I was out of control, that I was ruining the family for money. But by then, people weren't buying it anymore. Turns out, when your whole identity revolves around painting someone else as difficult, you're in trouble the moment that person starts telling the truth. They were exposed. And I was finally free. Not just from their control, but from the shame I'd carried for so long. The shame of being too sensitive, too independent, too ambitious. I moved into a new home that year, a quiet craftsman-style house overlooking the ocean in Big Sur. No noise, no guilt, no family members barging into my life pretending they hadn't once erased me. And for the first time in my adult life, I celebrated my birthday with people who actually wanted to be there. Close friends, clients who became like family. Even Marcus showed up, with a bottle of wine and a dry joke. Here's to signing your own life instead of letting someone forge it for you. I laughed so hard I almost cried. And later that night, I stood alone on the back porch, watching the tide roll in under a silver moon. And I whispered something I never thought I'd say out loud. I forgive you. But I will never forget what you taught me. Because they taught me who I never want to become. They taught me that love without respect is manipulation. And they taught me that silence, when chosen, not forced, isn't weakness. It's power. If that ending hit you hard too, drop a 2 in the comments. And stick around if you want more stories like this.